Welcome to the Trauma Survivorhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, an IFS-informed trauma recovery coach. This show features interviews from guests all around the world as they share their impactful stories and deliver hope and inspiration through their personal post-traumatic growth. We explore and discuss resources and coping strategies to support the survivor community to thrive in their own healing journeys. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Trauma Survivorhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah. I have with us today, Cari Kenzie. Thanks for being here. Cari is a survivor of the terrorist attack in 2013 at the Boston Marathon finish line. Cari Kenzie knows firsthand the devastation that comes in the aftermath of tragedy when truth is denied or hidden. This is the moment when her life journey and divine purpose collided. As an entrepreneur and owner of a multi-million-dollar company, she had to become the master of her healing and the owner of her own life. I love that. This has led her to create the Truth Seeker's Journey. Cari is a quantum healer and a life mastery coach who helps individuals navigate beyond drama, trauma, and self-sabotage. She does this by curating a curiosity that invokes clarity to uncover endless opportunities. Cari, I'm so excited to have you here today. Thanks for joining us. Oh, I love your story, and I know there's so much depth behind. We're almost coming up to the 10-year mark, to the Boston Marathon finish line. I'm a New Englander, so very, very impactful. I was actually supposed to be down at MIT for a project the day that everything, the next day after everything happened. So huge headlines around the world, kind of shook Boston really as a whole, right?
Yes,
And you write in the
absolutely.
after, yeah, it was just it's terrifying and scary, especially in like such a safe city too. So like no one would have
Yes.
expected that, which
Oh,
is which is what they want, right? Which is what all people who are abusers and terrorists want. They want to catch us off
mm,
guard. So
mm,
um you write that in the aftermath of that terrorist attack, a reporter actually asked you for your story, and
yeah,
you said you kind of walked away because you felt like it wasn't your story to tell. So just fill us in. Tell us what you're able to, what you feel safe to tell us
sure.
about that day and what happened and how that trauma left you then
Mm,
versus, here we are 10 years later now. So tell us a little bit
yeah.
about that journey.
Oh my goodness. What an incredible journey. It I found myself in Boston in 2013, just quite honestly by happenstance. I mean, I had qualified in 2010 and hadn't even really tried. I had started running as a form of stress relief because as a owner of a company, you're just going. And I thought, oh, I need to find something to kind of relax. And so I picked up marathon running, which makes absolutely no sense, but it was my thing. Um, so here I am at the start line, like the pinnacle of every runner's dreams in 2013. And it was incredible. It was absolutely gorgeous day. And I had run, I think up to like 18, 19, 20 miles. And my body just started to cramp and I was getting dehydrated. And so I finished. And as I was coming up to the finish line, I told myself, all right, just finish. And you can go to the medical tent when you get there. So I crossed the finish line. I believe I was leaning on a fence and a volunteer came and got me, took me in the medical tent. I was in there for, I believe, 20 to 25 minutes when there was just this, like the sound of a cannon that went off. And I immediately thought, I did not know that's how they celebrated. Like, I didn't know they let off cannons, right, to celebrate this holiday. And as instantly as those thoughts occurred, the second sound hit, and this time it shook. When you say it shook Boston, it literally shook. The tent felt like it was going to come down. The ground felt like it was going out from underneath you. Everything was reverberating, and you immediately knew. I caught the eyes of a volunteer, and just with unspoken words, we knew that bombs had gone off. Again, as quickly as these thoughts come through, they start bringing in the injured into the tent, and it becomes the triage unit. And so I looked at volunteers and I said, I am fine. Like I don't need anything at this point. I just need to find my family. So I walked out the tent and I looked to my right, which was down Runner's Alley, and it was empty. I just remember what seems to be sunshine and emptiness. And then I turned and looked to my left, and it was darkness, it was cloud, it was smoke. And all of a sudden I hear, run as fast as you can.
Mm.
And there were a line of yellow jackets. I called them, they were volunteers.
Yeah.
And they started running and chasing me. And I took off. I don't know how fast. I don't know how far. I do not remember stopping, quite honestly. And eventually found my way to the family meeting area
Mm.
and was just lost. I did not know where anybody was. They had closed down that area, so nobody was able to come to it. I didn't know where to go. I had no phone. I had nothing but the Mylar blanket they had given me. And a gal came up and asked if I needed anything. And I said I needed to find my family. And she gave me her phone.
Oh.
And I was on it and called and did everything I could, finally getting a hold of my family. And they came and got me. We went back to the hotel. And the next day, we went back down to get my belongings. And we were standing at the end of Boylston Street, just kind of observing the devastation and trying to grasp what had happened, quite honestly. And a reporter did come up behind me and he started to tap me on the shoulder and wanted to ask me questions. Can you tell me where you were yesterday? Can you tell me your experience? And I never looked at him. I caught him out of the corner of my eye because there was a voice inside my head that said, it's not your story to tell. And I turned and I walked away. And I got on the plane having participated in the experience. But when I got home, I got off the plane as a spectator, meaning that I went right back to work the next day. I owned a multi-million-dollar agency. I mean, I didn't have time to allow this, nor could I let anybody see that I was grappling with something. I mean, I had an entire life that had been built. And when you get into those situations where it feels like everything's shaky, then it feels like everything's shaky. And if you show any kind of weakness, you'll lose everything. And I watched the TV. I watched the manhunt. As soon as they caught the terrorists, I shut the TV off and I went back to work. Now, this seemed fine until 3-4 months later, and I could not walk up a flight of stairs unassisted. I became bedridden ill, chronically ill. Felt as though I was having heart attacks. I was having seizures standing up. I couldn't sign a check. I mean, my entire body systematically started to shut down. And I went to doctors and specialists and specialty clinics. And I mean, I went absolutely everywhere and nobody could tell me anything other than I had fibromyalgia or I was depressed. Those were the two things. And I just wouldn't settle for that being the answer. So I looked up in the phone book, which comical now, but I looked up and I found a specialist that I hadn't seen. Like, didn't know what he did. I just knew that I had not seen like whatever was under his name. So I made an appointment and I went in and I sat down. This was my wake-up call. This was the pivotal moment for me. You would have thought it would have been Boston. You would have thought it would have been the experience, but this was it. I walked in, I sat down, and he looked at me and he said, you know, I honestly can't do anything for you. I don't have anything in my toolkit that's going to be able to help you get better. But here's what I can tell you. You're not depressed, because I've never known a runner to be depressed. And instantaneously, it was like lightning struck in darkness that I had been navigating. He saw me. He didn't see my chart. He didn't see all of the symptoms. He literally saw me and he acknowledged me. And I knew from that moment on, I had to do just that, that I was the only one who was going to be able to navigate what I was going through. I was the only one who was going to be able to take this journey and to be able to heal from whatever was going on. And in that moment, I made that commitment to myself.
And then from there, you kind of took off into this healing journey now that you've been on, and it's really changed. It's upended your entire life. Like you've kind of
Oh,
switched gears in all facets, which
I
is
really
really
have.
amazing.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And that doctor's appointment was probably in 2014, and it
Mm,
was a wake-up call, but no, it did not transition everything overnight. I
right.
would love to say that it did. It did not.
Me too.
I
Right.
navigated Western medicine. I navigated holistic medicines. I would get a little bit better. I would get worse. I would come to discover diagnoses of chronic Lyme disease and Hashimoto's and Epstein-Barr and multiple autoimmune conditions. Then they just started kind of packing on. And
Mm,
the way that I was able to uncover these things, which really kind of guides into this whole element of what I teach my clients, is to be able to get really present with what was happening
mm,
and to be able to ask questions and to allow my intuition to guide me. If I would hear
mm,
something a couple, 2, 3 times, I think, you know what, I probably need to be tested for that. I probably need to go down that route. Well, it
yeah.
took me to a conference in 2016, and I went to Dave Asprey's Bulletproof conference to take his human potential coaching program. And they had a 2-day event that had an expo and his whole conference on the backside. So I'm in the expo, I'm walking around, I go to a neurooptimal neurofeedback area. I'm chatting with a gal. She says, what's going on? And at this point, while I had felt better and gotten a little bit worse, it was definitely better than I had been in 2014. I had insomnia so bad that it took 5 prescription sleep medications to get me to sleep at night. Then
Wow.
that not only leads to insomnia, but now it leads to anxiety about the insomnia, which, as anybody who's navigated any kind of trauma or illness knows, it's not just what it is that you're navigating through, it's the anxiety of
Right.
the potential
Yeah.
of what it is you're navigating through. And
Yep.
so I told her this, and she said, there's this gal who does this thing, and she really helped me. You should give her a call. And I would have done anything to get better.
Yeah.
Um, and so I call this gal and I joke, I say, it's like, she goes, yeah, so tell me about your childhood, which is not what happened. But what she did was open me to the awareness that every single thing that we experience, that every trauma that we have been through becomes a manifestation within the body. And until we go back and we navigate through and we heal those traumas, we heal those experiences, when we have the ability to see them from a different perspective, we have the ability to have gratitude and compassion, not only for the experience, but so deeply for ourselves that it can do nothing but heal us moving forward.
Yeah.
And that was in 2016. Then I took a deep dive into quantum physics, into how the mind, the subconscious mind, operates and works. I navigated theta healing. I did NLP, I've done hypnosis. I have studied and trained in all of these areas to really get to the point where I understand and I know now how to utilize kind of that awakening moment, that genius that came to me, in the ability to be able to see the patterns that are created so that I can
Yeah.
help my clients be able to pull the thread so that they no longer have to repeat or continue with the reality that they have been navigating or living.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. It's so true when you pull on the right thread where that
Yes.
can lead you, right? And
Yes.
there's so many traumas. I know you guys are all listening out there. Like, it's true. Like, maybe we've been pulling on a wrong thread. Maybe we just haven't hit that crux of what we need to uncover all of it. So when you're talking about this, this idea of like your truth, like you felt in your head that day with the reporter, like this wasn't my truth to tell. Was it because you weren't injured? Was it because you didn't see it physically happen? Like what changed there for you to start telling the story and so powerfully?
It's and I see it because I run into people really too often who are suffering in silence.
Yeah,
And the issue is shame.
yeah,
At the end of the day, it's shame. And it's shame for having had an experience that we believe may take something away from somebody else's experience.
Mm.
It's were you hurt? Well, were you injured? And not having the response that causes you to go, oh, yeah, I should just be grateful. I should just be
Mm.
grateful because somebody did have it worse than I did. And so who am I to complain? And this goes for anybody in any experience on any magnitude. Now, Boston is an extreme example because there's not everybody is going to have or go through a terrorist attack, thank heavens, but everybody has had some kind of explosion happen in their backyard that was completely unexpected, right? And when you feel as though you're in the ripple and not in the direct impact zone,
Yeah.
that's when we take the emotions and we take the experience and we tuck it away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we pick up and we move on. It's something we've been taught since we were very little. Brush it off and keep moving. Not realizing that you're not brushing anything off. You're stuffing everything in. And when we stuff it in, it has to come out, like it's the pressure cooker, quite honestly, where the valve has to be completely released. Otherwise, you end up having these low-grade trauma experiences that continue to happen all throughout life that you don't even realize are happening because you've keeping it right on a low until something comes in and all of a sudden it's like, shh, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Trigger comes in, we have a little, experience, we let those emotions come out and then we quickly shut it back
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true what you were saying about, it being a lessened experience, right?
down.
Because
Yes.
so many trauma survivors who have endured like psychological abuse, narcissistic abuse, manipulation, emotional
Yes.
neglect, right? They're like, but I had food on the table and no one hit me. So, I wasn't molested by anyone. So I had a nice school, I had a nice house.
Yeah.
It's like there is more to the human need than food and clothing, right? And
Mm.
so a lot of people have a hard time coming up with these, psychology is kind of getting away from big T, little t traumas, right? Something like Boston, now we would use a term like acute trauma, where like a
Mm.
childhood trauma would be more of a chronic trauma. And there is no big and there is no little. And it's really just how your brain handles it and what your brain uses, like your body immediately. I mean, within a couple of months, your inflammatory response was up. You're struggling with your health in crazy ways, right? That
Yeah.
seem like that can't happen that fast. Look at Carrie here. Yes, it can happen that fast because all of these things that we hold down are just creating this response in our body, and we need to be listening to that. So I really appreciate you saying that, because so many people listening are like, well, I didn't have this, or I didn't, oh my gosh, well, she was in the terrorist attack. I've never been in any, I've never even been in a car accident, right? No, it's
Yeah.
what is trauma for you is trauma for you. You wrote on your site, you said there's no single way, there's no catch-all fix, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Finding your soul's purpose is a journey that takes you deep into your past, your subconscious, and your vision for your future. So how does someone tap into this like knowingness that you say that we all possess? Like, do we all have to wait for like a lightning bolt, like what this doctor said when they actually saw you? Or how do you actually get
Mm.
still and get into that?
Yeah. Um, the first thing that you have to have, that a practice that you have to cultivate, is really to be present and to be able to find yourself in a moment and to quiet the mind, which as a trauma survivor is one of the hardest freaking things to do. And I totally understand that. You don't even have to be a trauma survivor. You could just be a type A personality and
Mhm.
it's still very
Yep.
hard to do, right? Because the mind is just constantly moving and constantly shifting. And so while there's a lot of, meditative practices and breathwork experiences that you can do, what I say is use a key phrase. And for me, it's something that I teach all of my clients and it becomes just habitual over time. And that is to go, isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
Right. So anytime you find yourself in any kind of a moment, you just go, wow, isn't that interesting? Because it immediately shifts your energy and it pulls you out of the experience and it gives you a little bit broader of a view.
Yeah.
Now, once you do that, you open up to a different kind of awareness. but you have to get really curious. Like there's no way to be able to truly tap into that knowing if you're constantly busy, if you're constantly doing, right? Because in those moments, you're deflecting all of the time.
Yeah.
If you don't have the ability to be able to sit in presence with your thoughts, all of the thoughts, and to be able to navigate them, then you're not going to be able to discern the difference between knowing, where it's like, how'd you know? I just knew. Like I just knew that this was the path that I wanted to go, the clarity of it, right?
Yeah.
Or the, wow, that is just ego. That is just something that is bouncing around my head. That is a thought. That is manipulation, whatever the case may be. So you have to bring yourself into an element of presence. And that was the first thing that I had to do. The second thing to that, not just the awareness, and really kind of the most important thing, is to be able to want and to know that you can have something different than you currently have. You have to want and you have to know that.
Yeah.
And it has to be the driving force, because if it's not, we will excuse ourselves out of action. We will excuse ourselves out of diving deep or even asking hard questions. Yeah. Because unfortunately, we get comfortable. We just do. We get comfortable in the discomfort. Now, when I talk about that low grade trauma, it is something that even in all of the work that I have done, and I continually work on myself, I continually navigate around triggers, because it's not something that you sit and dive into and go, wow, all right, good. It is a lifelong process, because we are beings who've experienced a lot. Yeah. And we have misinterpreted those experiences a lot, even in childhood. Yeah. When we do it in childhood, it's because we don't have the processes of the brain to be able to distill the information. We just don't. Yeah. But as adults, we can sit and we can justify and go, oh, I know exactly why they did that, right? That's how they were raised. Or I know that they loved me. And the more we do that, the more we justify and we step aside from the actual experience that we had, and we negate our ability to have that knowing.
So when clients are coming into your practice to work with you, what do you find, maybe the top like 2 or 3 things that have been holding them back, or that you find that they need to work on, that it's been holding them back from their healing?
Gosh, at least 2 things. And the first one being worthiness. This is why we step aside from our stories, because we don't feel as though we are worthy of having the experience. We don't feel as though we are worthy of the emotions of the experience. And that's going to stem all the way back into childhood, because that worthiness in that moment of, gosh, it's not my story to tell, somebody had it worse, is not discerning. It's not just worthiness in that particular moment. It actually will show up in every single area of your life. So worthiness is going to be the first one. Trust, the second. Yeah. We love to think that we trust ourselves. I will tell you that 97% of the audience that's listening to this podcast does not truly trust themselves. And it's because we question our thoughts, we question our reality, we question our experiences, we question our worth. And we don't have the ability to trust what it is that's happening within us, what it is that's happening for us. Therefore, we don't trust our ability to be able to navigate through it and beyond it. We feel as though instantaneously, the second we tap in or we dive in or we peel away the covers of an experience that we had, that's the thing that's going to take us out. Yeah. That's the thing that's going to overwhelm and overcome. And to that I say, dude, you've already done it. Right. Like you already did the hard part. Yeah. Now it's just going in and clearing up the rubble. We have to pull away all of the pieces. We have to get rid of all of the brick and the mortar and the destruction and everything that is sitting in a pile in order to find the gold that sits underneath it, because every experience is navigated through in order to be able to teach and to release. Yeah. Everything is there for our own evolution and for our own healing. We simply need to trust ourselves to be able to ask the questions, the hard questions, to challenge ourselves, to be able to find it so that we can move beyond it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree. Self-trust is super important. And, worthiness can come from, so I'm an IFS informed coach. So I do the internal family
Yeah.
systems. And,
Yep.
we reach a lot of like these nonverbal parts, right? The
Yes.
attachment and the fetal trauma that you might have endured those early couple of first years
Hmm.
that really shaped, are you welcome in this space completely and totally as yourself? So I know that you are a theta healer practitioner. Tell us a little
Mm.
bit about that.
Okay.
How is that so impactful for trauma survivors? How would that be so useful?
Gosh, it is one of the elements that I use in my practice. And really the significance of it is to be able to navigate through the past, to be able to ask the questions in order to be able to get to the subconscious programming,
Mm,
to find the pattern that's been created in order to be able to release it so that you can instantaneously shift that reality from something that you're currently doing and living to how you want to do and to live. So when I started in that was like my introduction into the world of quantum physics, into the world of epigenetics, into this true understanding
yes.
that consciousness is over matter. That the only way that you can actually physically heal is to be able to navigate the consciousness, to
Yes.
understand the energy and how it's manifesting within the realm of your body.
We love sharing resources. So I love to ask all
Yes.
my guests, what was one, two, three, however many you want to share, but some of the most catalyst healing resources or mechanisms or modalities that were helpful for you in your
Oh
journey?
gosh. Wow, so many. I mean, I've
Yeah.
navigated pretty much everything, to
It
be
sounds
honest.
like it. You just
Yeah,
got
I
like a
really
whole
have.
palette. It's
I
great.
really have. But let me give, if it's okay, I'd actually really just like to give the audience a tangible takeaway
Yes,
that they can
please.
use. Okay.
Yes.
And so greatest, um, the greatest ability that anybody has the opportunity to cultivate is that of curiosity,
Mm,
because the curiosity is the thing that is going to lead to clarity. It is the thing that is going to lead you to the other side of any illness. It's going to lead you to the other side of any anxiety, of any trauma, of anything that you would have navigated through. Okay. So, but when I'm talking about curiosity, I'm not looking at curiosity from let me question everything that I've been through. Let me question why they did that. Let me question, you know, why this had to happen this way. Right. What I'm talking about is really truly getting curious in this way. Gosh, why did I respond that way?
yeah.
Okay, what is it that I'm truly feeling in this moment?
Yeah.
Why did I create the opportunity for that? Okay. So, just as a quick final example, when I say that I continue to do my work, I do. And when
Yeah.
this curiosity, this element becomes such a muscle memory, it is just
Mm,
the go to and helps you navigate through everything so much more quickly. So, I
yeah.
did run another marathon in the beginning of September. And
Wow.
as I ran this marathon, it did not go well. I would love to say it was amazing and I qualified for Boston and I'll be there next year. It did not.
You beat your
Okay.
PR.
I
Yes,
know,
best
right?
marathon
No,
ever.
it was a hot mess, is really what
Mm,
happened. It was a hot mess. And I crossed the finish line. I do not recall crossing the finish line.
wow. Oh gosh.
I collapsed 3 times in the last mile. I mean, when I say it was messy, it was messy.
Mm,
It was hot that day.
mm,
We were running a loop. I had all of the reasons in the world to go, okay, well, this is why it happened. It was on an open course. It was really hot. But instead, what I did is I got really curious about it. And not instantaneously. Obviously, it took me like 45 minutes to kind of come around to that. But when I did get curious, what I found was I went, oh, you know what? That bridge we crossed over. First time we crossed over that bridge on lap one, it shook. I mean, it shook
mm,
to the point where everybody thought it was going to collapse. And
wow.
people would say, oh my gosh, wow, like what's going on? And the pace guide says, don't worry about it. It's the cadence, it's everybody hitting it at the same time. Like it's
Right.
safe, it's going to be fine. What I came to realize later is that was a trauma trigger for me. the ground shaking, feeling like everything was going out from underneath me.
Yeah.
And as I continued to run, my body systematically shut down. Now, what took me years to be able to have to navigate through previously took me a matter of a few days, a week, 2 weeks. And it's because I have the ability to have that curiosity to be able to dive in and ask those questions. Gosh, why did I need that experience? Right? What's the opportunity here?
Yeah.
What's the opportunity here? So that's what I would give to the audience, is really kind of a takeaway, not just in the presencing, but in the curiosity, to be able to start to navigate their own paths, to be able to get to the point where they can find that clarity and they do have the opportunity for complete healing.
Oh, wow. Cari Kenzie, we really appreciate you. And I'm so glad that you did get curious all those years ago and ask yourself, what was this experience? How can I change my purpose? How can I rise above this? How can I reach back now and with compassion and curiosity and truth seeking help others? And we're just so thankful for you. We're thankful that you're here and that you continue to do this work in yourself and for your clients. So let us know where we can find you. I'm going to have everything linked up in the show notes, but what's the best way to reach out to you? Your website, plug any upcoming events that you have, or your Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can be found at Cari Kenzie pretty much everywhere. And what I do have as an offering is I do have a mini course that is available. It'll be available to the audience. It is free, so there is no charge for it, but it helps you to be able to begin this journey and to be able to navigate and really kind of hone in potentially on that curiosity. So I will get you the link to that. I would love to offer that out as well. Again, on Instagram, it's Cari Kenzie. My website is Cari Kenzie. So really, really easy to find.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining us, and take care of yourself. Be well.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. I so appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening or watching this episode of Trauma Survivorhood. For more info, show notes, and links, check out the episode guide below. Until next time, be well, survivors.